joined a group of Hawaiians with the question for Kalukonokoha. By 1971, Kalukonokoha had passed from ali'i ownership, like Kamehameha, Kamehamoku, Holu'ua, all the way down to Kalakaua, to release Hawaii to Kalakaua, but always in ali'i hands, and for very good reason, very good reason. But it ended up owned by a Greenmill family in 1890s. So that by 1971, they had owned that land for a long time. And believe it or not, they had got it zoned so that it was now not ag and conservation, but urban. And Mr. Greenmill had this magnificent vision of creating a region where Kaloko Pond was, creating a private beach, and tearing down the old Kuapa, the seawall that was there, the ancient seawall that was still there. That triggered the Corps of Engineers permit. And the Corps of Engineers went to the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. They said, you know, this is a National Historic Landmark. What do you think about this permit? And bless their hearts, they said, why don't you ask the Hawaiians? Why don't you ask the Hawaiians what they think about that? And so there was a law created in 1971, and then an advisory commission was established in 1972. And that advisory commission, there were 14 of us, were all half Hawaiians. You had to be 50%, except one. The most prominent anthropologist, archaeologist in the Pacific at that time, Dr. Kenneth Emery, in the Mission Museum. So Kenneth Emery and 14 of us were given the charge. Is it feasible and desirable for Kalukonokoha, this National Historic Landmark, to become a national park? I think we had that question answered the first meeting. But we didn't do so because all of us, and let me just say a few words about who these advisory commissioners were, because, you know, some of you who may know them will realize that they were really, you know, cultural icons. Homer Hayes, born and raised here, he interviewed so many, he knew the coastline like no one else I knew here in Kona. He was fishing game, among other things, wildlife. He was a naturalist from the day he was born. Homer Hayes. Iolani and George Naope. You know, really the god and goddesses of hula. I mean, these two, you know, if you talk about hula, you can't get any better than these two. But it's not just the dance, it's the whole culture of a performing art. And the whole culture of dance and performing and chanting and the whole tradition. And Iolani Luahine was a very special person, very, very special, and so was George Naope. And then we had a Paneolo, a Hawaiian cowboy, Kyoki Penehaka, who was from Kohala. And he and I hit it right off because, you know, we were both from Kohala. And then a Kamaina family like Mauna Roy, you know, worked very hard. He was right up the road here. His family is still here, but he was here for generations. My point is, other people like Colonel Arthur Chun, Emily Ka'ai, Kaiwali, you know, these were all magnificent Hawaiians, and they're all gone now. I think I'm the only one left. But we answered that question 2 years later. We have public hearings throughout the islands, and we went through all of it. But throughout the hearings, we were very skeptical. These Native Hawaiian groups, this kupuna, because at any time we say the national park will jump in and say, okay, this is the way it's going to be. But bless their hearts, they never did. I remember Bob Burrell, who was the superintendent of the region here in Hawaii, and Howard, who was he?
Chapman.
Howard Chapman, who was in Denver. They come out to the meetings and they sat in the back and never said a word. Never said a word. And so, at the end of, I'm saying, you know, they might really believe what we said. And if they're really asking us the question, if the Department of Interior, the US government is asking a bunch of Hawaiians, what do you think about this place? We were gonna tell them. And we did. We did. And it resulted in the spirit of Honolulu. And we say the spirit, because so many of the parks emphasize place, the grandeur, the visible. We saw in these lava fields a spirit. It was a process. It wasn't just a place. It was a process how our kupuna could interrelate with that harsh environment. For them, it was not harsh. It was this, look at what Papa and Vakea gave us. They gave us this pond with a sand. All we have to do is manage it. And we got, look at this cove. All we have to do is build a cove pond. We got another pond. And look at what Papa and Vakea did over there. My God, that's a fish trap. I mean, wow, how lucky are we that, you know, Madam Pele and her lava folks created all this for us. They saw this environment as something that could really make them thrive. And then they saw the water coming down. They saw it gurgling up to the fish ponds. They saw the springs. And they said, what a magnificent gift we have. We can make this thrive again. And they did. They created what we call the first Oceanic Institute in Hawaii. They excelled and tried. And we kept thinking, how many years did it take for them to figure this out? But they did. Where that fish pond fed thousands of people. They could take the poor and knew what seasons to let it grow, when to transfer it. They checked the tides, the water going in and out, flushing out the ponds. They knew the water flow coming from Malta. They looked into the subterranean caverns and caves and they saw that this might make good burial places. I mean, it was a gem. People drive by Kona 50, 60 miles an hour, all they see is the lava field. What we see out there is good and industrious kupuna who made it thrive. It was a spirit. It was a spirit that we wanted to maintain, not just the place. It's how people interacted with them, which to us was just as important, more so than, you know, there's no great pyramids here. But there are these little planters where they figured out how to create soil and plant crops. Yeah? There's no huge Iolani palace, there's nothing. But there is a spirit of the Hawaiians. And for us, that was so important. And so, when we completed the report, we said, of course, it should be a park. But we said it, and I'd like to read this because it really becomes a cornerstone of the whole park. And some of you may go there tomorrow. Please remember this. It said, among other things, the study refers to and contains, but is not limited to, findings of respect to the historic, cultural, archaeological, scenic, and natural values of the resources involved, and recommendations for preservation and interpretation. And what we also said was, this place should be interpreted by Native Hawaiians. The management administration of this park should, to the extent possible, be done by Native Hawaiians. And if there are not enough Native Hawaiians eligible, there shall be training programs so that they will be eligible for administration management positions. You shall respect the integrity of the outboard management systems. What it did, what we were saying was, we want to recreate Kona Hall as the finest examples of how Kukuna's interaction in a special coastal region that made it thrive, that gave it spirit, that made it come alive. And we wanted to come back. That's what we were saying. And so we ended up by saying, we take special pleasure in presenting this study because perhaps for the first time, Native Hawaiians have been able to tell their story and to tell it in their own way. You don't know what a joy it was for me in Mount Roy and Edwin Apiaye to hand carry this to the Department of Interior in 1974, and he said, here, this is all Mana'o. We've answered your question. And then nothing happened. And Mona and I said, yeah, well, yeah, sitting on somebody's shelf. Well, that's good to expect. I mean, you know, they weren't taking that seriously when we did this. And then along came a phone call 4 years later. I went to Kamehameha schools, and it was from Washington, D.C. They were sending two people from the Department of Interior. They said, you guys still think it should be a park? Yes, well, you know, we and Congress, by the way, Congress agreed with everything we said. And the thing that we said as Native Hawaiians, it was still this attitude about, can we really trust the national park to do what we want it to? And we debated, I must say, I really must say, you know, during the first meetings, we were saying to ourselves, Native Hawaiians were saying, you know, our experience with the National Park Service hasn't been all that good. Why should we give it to them? Why don't we create a park for Hawaiians? Why entrust this cultural treasure to the federal government? Why don't we do it up? But there was no OHA, there was no money, there was nothing. And we said, well, let's write the report in such a way that it'll do what we think it should do, and let Uncle Sam pay the bill. And Congress said, okay. And one of the things we said is that in this park there should be an advisory council of Native Hawaiians who will be there to advise the park on how to develop that park. We also said there shall be in this park a cultural live-in center where Native Hawaiians don't have to leave at 5 o'clock, where they can stay if they want to, for short periods of time, where they can immerse themselves into the spirit of that aina. And so there would be short-term live-in programs. There's not a park in the nation with that mandate. And so we're very proud and pleased when Congress said yes, but then, you know, it took a long time. And through some creative exchanges of land and money, we paid Mr. Greenwald $60 million. Almost $60 million for 1,500 acres of land. Well, about 600 of land, and we had about 600 of water. But it was very expensive. But that's, you know, look at it. It's just like a novel field, right? But the point is, we answered the question. Hawaiians said this is what we want it to be. We want to do the interpretation. We want to tell our story. We want to recreate and do it our way. Congress said, okay. And it's been 40 years, and all of my colleagues have passed on. And 2 years ago, you know, nothing was happening, and I said to myself, man, I can't let this dream just die. I can't let this vision that we had just die. And so I convinced Jerry Bell to create a group that would just focus on the cultural live-in center. And the park had made it, we didn't know how to do that. We've never done it before. So we said, okay, let's work with you. And if you go there tomorrow, that's exactly what you're going to see. It's a beautiful example of Native Hawaiians trying desperately to recapture the spirit of their place. And the national park saying, we want to help you as much as we can. At last. The ingredients are there. It's taken 40 years, but I am convinced that it's going to be done. And every once in a while, when I think about Lana Roy and you learn to do what you enjoy spending out and talk about it, and I say, hey guys, it ain't over yet. It ain't over yet. It's still in the works. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And we're really pleased. You know, I am so pleased when I see people like Andrew and Mike, you know, putting all the technical, because Hawaiians need all this. We do. We need to know how you know, we have a passion, but passion is not enough. You gotta know how to communicate that. You gotta have the techniques on how to do that. We cannot say, hey, we need fresh water. We gotta know, we gotta teach what that means, what you're doing when you to the aquifer there, when you take it out. And then you're dumping waste back in. You know, we gotta do that. We need the science to be working with us. Passion is not enough. Spirit is not enough. You gotta have science to back us up. And so I think all those elements are there now. And I think, you know, working with the National Park Service is a joy. I think all the skepticism we had 40 years ago may not have been warranted. I think we're well on our way now to, it's taken a long time, and for a while I had doubts. I had my doubts, I really did. I thought it was just going to be dreams, but it's not. It's there, and so it was with a great amount of joy and maybe some tears when we dedicated, you know, when we put the first pole into the ground for Halaiki, the first building. I mean, I had tears. I was thinking about these guys. I was thinking about them. I said, hey, it's happening, it's happening. It is happening. Here, first post. You know, that was monumental. For me, it was monumental. And this is the kind of stuff, you know, this is what we have to pass on to the next generation, is that, okay, we have a place, we have the backing of the government, we've got to make it work. You know, it might have taken 200 years for the overwhelming forces of the West and the East to continuous bombarding on Hawaiians to un-Hawaiianize us, and it may take another 200 years for us to restore ourselves, but we will. We will. One park at a time, one building at a time, but we will. So, you know, the combination of having, you know, the legislation, the authority of the park, the science of interpretation, the science of, you know, resource management, I think all that is very critical. It's all part of the whole effort. And I really feel good that I'm able to share some of this with you on behalf of the Hawaiians who wrote this. And if you haven't had a chance to read this, you can read this because there never has been a park that was put together the way this one was. It's a very special place. So thank you very much. I'm sorry.